Hello there, and welcome to episode 17 of the podcast Jump into Success. Okay, let's go. Alrighty. So here we are, episode 17, and we've got a great guest for you today, Mr. Dan Leyland, who is an experienced, and I think it's fair to say fairly accomplished management consultant. Now, a couple of things before we get to that. I just want to mention a couple of things that I know most of you who will be listening will be interested in. So Be Inspired Group, as you know, I've talked about the Be Inspired Group many times. It's our free to access personal development club, lots of free content every day, a self-coaching video every single Monday, and of course the live event, which is what I'm going to mention right now. At the end of every month we have our live event, and it's this month will be the 24th of October, and the theme is all around journaling, reflective practice, and how that accelerates our personal development. So if you want to be involved with that, come along, and if you're not a member of the Be Inspired Group, why not join? It's completely free, and you'll get access to a whole ton of free content all around personal development. And of course, on our live event, we always do our now famous giveaway. So you might be able to get a chance to win a prize. Now, another thing I want to mention is, now this next thing is pretty cool. I think it's a bit of an experiment, so who knows if it'll work out, but I think it will. And it's based on some feedback we had from a listener to the podcast. And this lady kind of suggested that a particular episode was really powerful and helped her sort a few things out in her life. And that episode was all around goal setting. So I was thinking about that, and I thought what we'll do is we're kind of going to do a kind of a joint project affair, if you will, with the Be Inspired Group and the podcast Jump into Success, where we're going to do some live coaching. It's going to be like group coaching, if you will. We're going to have a couple of very focused coaching question sessions with some follow-up, with some video on the Be Inspired Group. And then we're going to ask for feedback on people who followed through and took action and how that worked out. We'll talk more about that in the future on both channels, the Be Inspired Group and here on the podcast. So if you want to be involved in that and have some, I guess, free, for want of a better word, coaching experience, and maybe set a goal for next year as we rush to the end of 2024, moving ahead into 2025. So maybe now is a good time to think about, what am I going to plan for next year? That might be a good thing. Okay, so enough about that for now. I just want to say I'm looking out the window, and boy, is summer over. Autumn has definitely arrived. I think autumn, possibly even winter. It is pretty cold out there, although the weather said it's going to pick up later in the week. I don't know if that's true or not. But how much rain? I just think any more rain, you'll have to start building an ark. All right, I'm rambling. So let's get on with today's special guest. It's Mr. Dan Leyland, who is a pretty experienced management consultant. And really interesting interview. Actually, I've worked with Dan on a project a few years ago, which was very really interesting. And we used lots of NLP tools, especially around success factor modeling and logical levels of change, the Robert Dilts stuff. But anyway, see what you think. I think this is a great interview. Enjoy. Here comes Dan Leyland. So a big welcome to our guest for today's recording. And it's Dan Leyland, an accomplished and experienced management consultant. Hi, Dan. How are you today?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, Tony. You?
I'm good. Got this stupid cough again. I can't seem to shake it. I've had it for weeks now. It kind of comes and then it goes, and it comes and it goes. I think it's just one of those things that you just have to sort of endure for the rest of the winter. I don't know. I'm sure I'll get rid of it eventually. More vitamin C or something. I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'll figure it out. So, management consultant, it's one of those things you hear that people are involved in, or they've been management consultants in the business. But what does that really mean? I think some people kind of question, what does that really mean? What does a management consultant do?
I think it's one of those labels that can mean lots of different things and does mean lots of different things. So it's an umbrella term that can mean everything from going in and helping organizations to develop vision, purpose, aims, and strategy, all the way through to helping solve problems or realize opportunities. So my particular flavor of it is I've been doing it for about 20 years and focused primarily on M&A, integration, and business transformation.
So you have to do some translation. M&A?
So mergers and acquisitions.
Mergers and acquisitions, okay.
Yeah, integrations and then business transformation. So another way of packaging that up would be a significant growth strategy is to buy organizations that give you either something that you don't have or more of something that you already have, whether that's reach into a new market, whether it's new capabilities. So I go in and help them to do all of the buying of those other organizations, then integrate them so that two become one, and then transform them so that you manage to retain the DNA that makes each of them what they are, and you don't lose any of that. But at the same time, you can take two things that are good and make one thing that's better. So 1 + 1 = 3.
Yeah, 1 + 1 = 3. Yeah, because I suppose historically, and I think we've all sort of seen that, where these big corporations often buy each other up and try to blend, and it turns out not to work very, very well because of the cultural differences, or just kind of, hang on a second, that's not how we do things, and one's trying to eat up the other and it kind of doesn't work out. I suppose what you're saying is, yes, let's make that work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the stats are actually really bad.
Oh, really?
It depends on which stats you pick up on. The overriding consensus is it's a bit of a risky bet. But, you've got everything ranging from one of the strategy consultancies reckons that you've got a 12% chance of getting the outcomes that you were expecting from mergers and acquisitions and integration, all the way through to others that put it as high as 70%. But even if we take the optimistic scenario, then you've got, at best, a kind of 30% chance of being able to succeed. So you've got 70% of programs fail versus 88% of programs fail. And so what I think has been interesting and is really the nature of the work that I do is to try and help clients to work out not just are they aware of the odds, but how do you gain the odds? Because it isn't that none of these things work, it's that the minority of them work. So as we've discussed on a number of occasions about modeling excellence, there is a formula. You can work out what is it that you need to do or not do to make sure that you fall on the right side of the odds.
Yeah. And I guess that's right, because some of those stats or odds, if you want to use a betting vernacular, don't sound very encouraging for that kind of activity.
They're not. No, they're really not. And yet organizations continue to do it because there is a chance of success, just like people continue to play the lottery because there is a chance of success.
Sure. So how do you become a management consultant then? I mean, you sort of go to university and think, this is what I'm going to do? Or is there as a trainer for myself, it was very clear what you wanted to do if you wanted to do that. Not that I remember thinking I wanted to do that way back when. It was just kind of found myself doing it, thought, wow, I really love this, and decided to make that my career. So what's your story? How did you sort of become this well-known in your field and, experienced management consultant?
It's a slightly unconventional story. So there are some fairly traditional paths into management consulting. One of them tends to be to go in as a graduate to one of the big management consultancy houses, the likes of Deloitte or EY, PwC, those sorts. Another one is there are quite a few people that are ex-military that get into management consultancy because of the crossover of skills between the need to organize things very effectively in one context versus another. For me, though, the route was that I went off to medical school, thought it was going to be one thing and it wasn't. took a year out and worked for a business that didn't treat people particularly well. And as I was getting towards the end of that year, I could see what was about to happen and decided that I would leave. And then when I went off to uni, have a crack at doing it myself. What was supposed to be a little bit of beer money turned into a business that did just over £1 million at its first set of accounts, which wasn't expected. But then I was youthful and naive and creative where I didn't need to be, and played around with a business model that wasn't broken in the first place and found a way of breaking it, and lost the business, which was a bit tough. But then I got invited by a guy that I knew to come and help him with an established business to solve a problem. And the rest, as they say, is history. I found that there are some transferable skills between being able to take an idea and turn it into a business versus going into an established business with a brief of, here is a problem, go and sort it, or here's an opportunity, we need to realize it.
Yeah. So what I find interesting and almost a little bit frightening, if I'm honest, the two main entry points into management consulting that you've mentioned there, one being the big accountancy, and there's always been that sort of thing, especially in small and medium-sized businesses. Don't let an accountant run your business because they'll run it into the ground. And military people, and the language of the military is about combat and fighting, and they don't strike me as great recipes for growing a business. Whereas your own experience is actual experience in the real world, and then applying that to making a change to whatever business you've been asked to help out in.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that there are different perspectives on that, though. So I'd probably argue the case for the defence as well as the prosecution, and say that a lot of the military expertise doesn't necessarily have to be to do with going on the offensive. The importance of strategy and execution in the military is obviously critical. Likewise, a lot of the management consultancies now, although their origins were absolutely as big accountancy firms, they've tended to diversify. And so their intake tends to be quite broad and diverse. But your point about people that have gone in as graduates is one that I'd struggle to defend, because it is true. And a lot of the time, they are the people that are deployed at quite significant day rates into client organizations to fix something that they've never come across before. And this, for me, is part of the problem. Now, they have to be able to learn, but I do wonder whether it's always quite as transparent that someone will be deployed in a role where they'll be learning on the job, rather than having the battle scars of been there, done it 25 times before, here's the playbook.
Yeah, sounds a little bit like some of these guys are learning on the job at the client's expense.
They are, and in years to come, though, I don't doubt that they will be hugely valuable to other clients, and some of them are brilliant. I mean, they've done very tough degrees at very tough universities, and the selection process is very stringent. So there's a lot to bring, but I wonder whether they always bring what the clients expect.
Yeah, or maybe I'm just being unfair then. So what do you think are the key skills that you bring to the job to be a good management consultant? Because I know, obviously, because I know you anyway, that you're also an NLP master practitioner and a coach, and you've got a whole wealth of skills and tools that you can lean on. But maybe some of them are useful in this field. What are the skills that you think help somebody in this kind of that industry, or this industry, if we can use that vernacular, to stand out in the marketplace and to be successful and make a difference when they work with the clients?
It's interesting that sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. I think listening is probably the single biggest thing. So I mentioned the stats before about chances of success. And having done this for a while, I've obviously got my theories and viewpoints on why is that situation as it is. And a big part of it is that in my view, most organizations haven't fully understood the problem that they're trying to solve and the outcome that they want to realize before they embark on a significant investment of time and money with often unforeseen risks. So I think listening and going into an organization and really understanding from multiple vantage points what's good, what's bad, what's ugly, what are the things that we need to fix, and how will we know when we've succeeded is absolutely critical.
Yeah, yeah. And from the world of NLP, would you think there are particular models or things there that can be useful? I'm curious from my own point of view, to be honest with you, given my background.
I think that there are. I think the logical levels model is probably the popular answer that a lot of people give to the question about what's really struck them in NLP. I use it an awful lot because when you're designing a change and transformation program, whatever the context might be, there are lots of different flavors, whether you're buying a company or installing a new IT system or whatever the change might be. There's an adage that I quite like, which is new system plus old organization equals expensive old organization. In other words, if the only change that you apply is you put something into the environment, then you can't really expect to get a return on your investment because that is part of the change rather than all of the change. But then I also think some of the presuppositions, like there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. Again, if I bring you back to the stats, the awareness isn't the problem. A lot of people quote these stats about the chances of success with change and transformation work, but then when you look to them for, okay, so what's your strategy to make sure that you get the outcome that you want? Often the strategies aren't that robust.
Yeah. Or a clear destination.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't get into a car with a sat-nav system without knowing where you are and where you want to get to and expecting to get there in the optimum time.
Yeah, for sure. So my guess is you've worked with all sorts of different companies, or do you work with a particular type, or is it kind of across the board? Anybody who I suppose they think, yeah, this guy can come and help us make a difference to where we want to go and what we want to do. Is it any different sectors, or is it just generally anybody or any type?
No, it's been a variety, and for me, this is one of the things that makes it so interesting. That I've got, and you can have, a methodology which you roll out, it's tried and tested, and there's a real advantage to the client of you can land and deliver value immediately because you've been there and done it before. But that can be sector agnostic. So I've done things ranging from hot air ballooning to tobacco to financial services to media, probate, all sorts.
Well, that's a pretty
hot
air ballooning. Wow, goodness me, that was pretty exotic.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges in hot air ballooning is if you sell something as a once in a lifetime experience, it makes repeat business quite tricky. So how do you then look at that business and work out what the opportunities are to be able to grow it when your whole selling point is kind of working against you a little bit?
Yeah, because it's a one-time thing.
Yeah,
I guess so. Any funny stories from different companies without naming them?
I was trying to think of anything that I can repeat. There are plenty of funny stories, but I'm not sure that there are any that spring to mind that wouldn't give the game away.
Okay, we're going to park that one then. We don't want to get you into trouble.
Maybe over a beer.
Over a beer. Okay, we'll schedule that. So do you think that training and development within that process, because I'm a great believer in investing in the people on the job that will make the difference for the job, and having a element all around that, because it's one thing to say, right, we're going to go in this new direction and we're blending these two organizations together, but without some kind of training, coaching, and I guess general support for the individuals, in my view, and I'm not that I'm a great management consultant, because I'm not, but the bits that I've been involved with over the years as the coach, it's very clear to me that it's the coaching bit and the training bit that seems to be the secret sauce to help those stats be a little bit better.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it brings me back to when I first started with How to Change, and then over the years it's evolved. What am I here to do? What's the purpose? What's the mission for the organisation? And it's to help organisations to do what may have seemed impossible, so that their people can deliver exceptional results, enjoy their work, and feel fulfilled. That then acts as the guiding principle. So with that in mind, somewhat ironically, I go into client organisations, and success is to make sure that they're left in a situation where they've got the capabilities and the confidence to be able to do this the next time themselves. Now, you don't do that if you go in purely sleeves rolled up and say, move out the way, I'm going to do this and I'll let you know when I'm done. You have to do it with the team, and I want to do it with the team. That's where the fun comes in. So in terms of training and coaching, absolutely. More often than not, they're interwoven together. So you get something that's held out for simplicity as consultancy, but often it's a blend of coaching, training, mentoring, consultancy, support. But always the end game is over to you. And in fact, we've got distinct propositions if clients want them for business change coaching and business change training, because it can be quite lonely at the top. You know, whether you're the CEO of an organization and it's traditional executive coaching, or whether you're the sponsor of a business change initiative, which isn't always going to be popular. And often the circle of who knows what can be quite small. So being able to support those individuals, and also the ones that are going through change and perhaps moving into a different role, or something is fundamentally changing in their organization, can be worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Actually, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you, because inevitably change causes pain and discomfort, and most people in most organizations don't like change, even though it's a bit like death and taxes. It's inevitable, especially in the modern world. And if you're going to be blending companies and organizations together and big sort of change programs for that very reason, there's going to be kind of resistance and friction. How do you get around?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question, and I need to be careful not to get too much onto my soapbox. But there are a couple of terms which I think are very convenient. There's change resistance and change fatigue. Now, you'll hear them a lot in organizations in terms of, you know, how much change can an organization take, and resistance to change, and, you know, needing to press pause. My view is that people will resist something that they either don't understand or that they can't see the what's in it for me. And in terms of change fatigue, if you are in an organization and you've been on the receiving end of numerous projects that promise the earth and deliver something totally different, how could anyone not be fatigued by that cyclical experience? I think that whilst there will be certain change and transformation initiatives that, by the nature of what they are not always going to please everyone, it's really crucial to start by getting the motivational hooks. So understanding the framing of, right, this is the kind of big ticket item of what we're trying to achieve, but then tapping into the knowledge within the organization and the different perspectives to understand, look, if metaphorically this is a bus that is driving from A to B, then what is it that you don't like about A? What is it that you do or could like about B? And what would we have to do to the bus or its journey in order to make sure that it's taking people from where they are to where they want to be in the best possible way? If you do that effectively, typically the change fatigue and the change resistance either melt away or become a significantly smaller issue.
Yeah. I have to say, that sounds sneaky like a coaching process to me.
Well,
what's the problem?
Like I mentioned, is the interweaving of training, coaching, mentoring, and consultancy. And you know, you hear people talk about NLP and say, you know, is it lacking in integrity because you're influencing people to do something that they don't want to do? I'm not sure that you can influence people to do something they don't want to do, whether it's NLP or whether it's business consultancy. I think what you can do is you can help them to understand what is likely to happen and to make the journey as positive as possible.
Yeah, it's kind of the an away from or towards. This is what's going to happen if we don't change. It's not going to be great for this organization. Yeah. This is what's going to happen if we do change in this direction. So let's together work. What has to happen to get from here to there? That makes it easy for everybody. And so it's a win-win relationship. Yeah, I get that. I really, really do. Interesting. Very interesting, actually. Okay, a couple of questions we ask everybody then. What's your favorite personal development book, if you have to pick one?
Yeah, well, that's an easy one. So I absolutely love the book Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Oh, yes, I know. Yeah.
I tend to listen rather than read things because of, travel time, cars, trains, planes. But the number of times I've listened to it, I've lost count. And there are just so many applications. I think it's absolutely fascinating. The idea of the hedgehog concept, for example, of find one thing and do it brilliantly over and over again, and you can outsmart the cunning fox. Certainly, I've used that in the business in terms of there is a problem, change tends not to work. How do I fix that problem in the most elegant way? And what are the offshoots as value-added offerings like coaching and training to that?
Yeah.
What about you? What's your favourite?
Oh, crikey, a wheelbarrow full of books. But that book you've mentioned, Jim Collins' book, is one that I quote a lot on training programs because it is sometimes very simple ideas, but actually when you think of it in the context of management development or leadership development program, they just fit so well. And that with a couple of other tools, you can have a whole program just add water almost. It's really, really good stuff. Is there a particular management consultant book, if somebody was interested in that, they should read? I mean, I don't know if you would recommend one, or is there such a thing?
There may very well be. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. No, I couldn't think of one when I was thinking of asking you that question. Yeah. What about a professional development book, or would you class that the same as personal development? Because we asked somebody else the other day, and they were very clear about the differences between the two, and I thought, wow, that's really interesting.
Well, I think because of what the Jim Collins book is, it's both. Because it's the enduring principles that he's written the book, as he says in the preface, using businesses purely because of publicly available data. But actually, the lessons are just as applicable in personal life as they are in a business context.
Yeah. I get that. Good. Great. Now, if people wanted to reach out and get hold of you, how would they do that?
So there's a website, howto-change.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, which I think everyone is nowadays.
Yeah. We'll add those links into the show details so people can reach out to you. Dan, this has been really, really good. Really, really appreciate your time because I know you're super busy. I know that you're jetting off to some exotic land to do some work. So we thank you very, very much. And hopefully we'll have you back again in the future for a second interview and maybe just how it's been going and different things that you've been doing. And maybe you will be able to tell us a funny story without incriminating yourself. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Thanks, Tony. Have a great day.
Okay, so there we are. I'm sure you'll agree. There's some really, really interesting content in that interview. We thank Dan for his time because I know he's super, 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 super busy. Okay, so that's what we've got for you this week. Be sure to subscribe because we've got lots more guests lined up in the coming weeks and months. And of course, some great content, as I've already mentioned, about the sort of joint project with the Be Inspired group for some live coaching. More on that very, very soon. Guys, take care of yourselves. Catch you on the next episode. Bye for now.